Join me as I share a review and inside look of History Quest United States. Hey everyone, welcome back to Regular Secular Mama. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Cassie. I'm a 6-year homeschooling mom to 2 kiddos, currently ages 9 and 12 years old. Today I'm sharing with you an honest review and an inside look at a curriculum that I was super excited about back when they were producing it. I'm not sure how long you've been following me, but we actually used History Quest Middle Times all the way through, not last year, but the year before. It had come out at just the right time when we were about to start studying that time period, and I really liked using that much better than something else like Story of the World. Anyway, once we finished Middle Times, I was really excited to get into the next level of this, but it was not ready and it wasn't going to be ready anytime soon. So we actually started up with Build Your Libraries Level 5, and now we're almost to Level 6. But I still really wanted to take a look at this. I knew that I wanted to include all the things, all the different perspectives on United States history, just because there's so much to cover and so many different perspectives, and I just wanted to try to include as much as I could. So we are using Build Your Library 5 and 6. I've been weaving in things from Blossom and Root's River of Voices, which is wonderful, but I knew that I wanted to try to include this as well because we loved Middle Times so much. Full disclosure, I did receive a free copy of this from Pandia Press in exchange for my honest review. I had planned to purchase this anyway. It was just really sweet that they offered to send this to me. So thank you so much, Pandia Press. Keep in mind that all of my opinions here are my own and are my honest opinions about what I think about this curriculum. So let's get into it. I'm not going to do too much comparison between History Quest United States and what we used before, Middle Times. It does follow basically the same format. You have your textbook here, and then you have your study guide along with it. I actually used the print textbook and then the PDF of the study guide for Middle Times, and that worked perfectly fine. It's beautiful and it's in color, so I really I like the way this looks, and it's really nice quality. But I don't feel like I needed to have this in print form. But I do highly recommend having this in print form. You can get, I think, a PDF of this, and you can also get the audiobook. Now, a lot of people are a huge fan of the narrator who does the audio version of this. I think I'm actually in the minority. We slowed it down a little bit because we like to take our time to digest it. And it wasn't much. It was maybe like 90 to 95% of the full speed, but when we slowed her down, there was enough of a drawl there that it was kind of hard to follow. Anyway, we weren't huge fans of the narrator, and I know we're in the minority, so check out a sample of it if you think you might want to go the audio route and see if you like the way that she's narrating. But 9 times out of 10, I wound up just reading the book to them because we preferred it that way. Like I said, it follows the same format. It is chapters, and then each chapter is followed up with what they call a history hop. So you have, your chapter on whatever the topic is, and this is written more at maybe an upper elementary or even middle school reading level. So if you had older kids and you wanted to, say, assign the reading for them to do on their own, you could do it that way. After each chapter, there's the history hop that goes with that chapter, and what that is, it's basically the reader is the narrator who is jumping back in time and meeting somebody from that time period who is somehow ingrained in what's going on in that chapter. So for example, not too long ago, we covered the Trail of Tears and the Indigenous being pushed westward. And this history hop, I believe, was a journalist for an Indigenous newspaper, the Cherokee Phoenix. So that was kind of cool that we got like an Indigenous perspective on what was going on. They do a really nice job representing minorities and not, telling history from the winner's point of view. So the textbook is really well done. We really enjoy this just if we were reading it through. If you wanted to use this as a full curriculum though, the study guide is essential. In the study guide, you have the exact same thing, print or PDF. It's all going to be the same. There's some really nice information in the front on how the program works and what's included and how you might want to use the different pieces. So the way this is laid out is there are enough chapters, or what they call units. You could easily use this to fill up an entire year of history study. There are only 26 units or chapters in the book, not including the intro and the conclusion. But that doesn't include some other units that are outside of the textbook, like the Huga units, where you're basically just exploring literature and things that are tied into whatever that topic is. They also include a couple of research units, which I really like that they do this. I think it's geared toward a little bit older grade level than the early times and middle times books. So this is a nice way to include some research skills. This was also how History Quest was able to address Native American nations. So they don't go into a lot of detail at all about the different regions and different nations in different parts of North America. What they do instead is they have you choose a nation that you're living on their land, basically. And you're going to research that nation and that group of people to learn about Indigenous people instead of covering people from all over North America. Ideally, you would cover, as many people and as many different nations as you could, but it's trying to condense all of American history into 1 year. So this was a really clever way to do that. I think it was a nice way to have some connection, to Indigenous people. I feel like when we covered Native American nations, it was kind of hard to feel like a personal connection to what was going on. A lot of resources talk about Indigenous peoples as if they are in the past and not still around. And so this was kind of a nice way to bridge that gap and feel more of a personal connection to the Indigenous people whose land you're living on. Of course, you could do a deep dive and stretch that unit out much further and research many different nations. So that's an option if you really want to cover more of an area. Another thing I really like is how they cover civics and how the government works. So they don't get into too much detail, but they do have separate units on the different branches of government. So you've got one on the executive branch, and then later I think you cover the judicial branch. And then later the legislative branch. They also have another research quest or research unit later on where you're researching your local government and how you can participate in that. All right, so once you get into using this, each week or each unit is laid out very similarly, especially the units that have the reading chapters. So here's Unit 1, covering the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. They're going to give you kind of the objective for the week right here, and any supplies that you might need for the hands-on activities, materials that you'll need to make sure you have printed out for each kid, any books that might go along with this that you would maybe want to check out from the library. And they follow pretty much the same pattern. Usually you're going to read the chapter and maybe do hands-on worksheets. And then the next day you'll do the history hop and exploring Google Earth. Day 3 is usually the hands-on activity. It might be some sort of arts and crafts or project that you're working on. Day 4 would be review or any sort of demonstration or assessment of what they've learned. And day 5, they leave kind of open. It's really just included in there if you wanted to enrich the unit with, library books or extra searching around the internet, things like that. Since we usually do 4 days a week, when we did middle times, we only did basically the first 4 days, and we just kind of included this in our morning basket time, I guess. This year, we're using this totally differently. We're not using it as our main curriculum, so I'll get into how we're using it in just a little bit, but if you were using this as your main curriculum, it's laid out really nicely for you. Something I noticed when I was flipping through the study guide is that it is a little more meaty, it's a little more detailed, and there's a little more included when you have copywork and things. These terms and concepts are more detailed. It definitely is appropriate for a slightly older age level than early times and then middle times. So if you're following the progression, it ages nicely with your kiddos. Now, because it is American history, it covers on a lot of really sensitive topics. That's another reason why I think Pandia Press has labeled this as a slightly older age level, because not only is the reading level just slightly higher, the details in here just slightly more in depth, but the stuff that you're covering is really sensitive. So those who have very sensitive kids are going to want to keep that in mind. Now, the way we are using this is a little bit different. I'm using this more as a supplement to what we're studying in Build Your Library and River of Voices. Build Your Library is kind of acting as our main spine for how we are laying out our lessons. I'm tying in all the videos and extra books and enrichment things from River of Voices. We are using some of these chapters as I guess, review. So when we were covering, for example, the Trail of Tears, after we had covered all of that stuff in our other lessons, I went ahead and read the chapter to them, and we did the history hop along with it as kind of like a review. I like to include these because my kids really enjoy the history hop chapters. They're a very unique way to feel, I guess, a connection with what they're studying in the past. So we do the history hops, we do the travel logs that go with that, and I'll show you what those look like. Oh, I completely forgot, because we don't actually really use them. My kids are they like to draw their own pictures, but they include coloring pages that go with each unit. So this would be a fun idea to include if you were doing notebooking to go with your history. Here's a look at a couple of the maps that are included. There aren't too many maps in this, but they are kind of sprinkled throughout the curriculum. Here's nice worksheets to help organize their research. Okay, here we go. So they included 2 different versions of this. One has like primary lines for kids who are still, working on letter formation, and then regular like wide ruled lines. So of course you would want to make copies of these for each of your kids and for, of course, each history hop chapter. But we are still using this because they enjoy those chapters so much. And I really like how this is kind of like tying in a timeline and map along with that. If you've used or been looking at early times and middle times, this one's slightly different also because it includes a little more space for writing. So as the kids get older, they may be writing slightly more in response to the history hops. So I like that they give you the space to do that. And of course the map is just the United States, because that's, you're not going to be all over the world. Something that we're not really including very much of is the hands-on activities, the like arts and crafts type things. We enjoy doing those things, but we just don't have a lot of extra time for that, and the kids are, doing other things. So anyway, we haven't included a lot of those. There are a couple that I really want to include though, like for example, when we get to the 1920s, they're doing a project where they're studying the stock market, and they're following a couple of stocks over time to like see how those prices go up and down. So I thought that was a really fun way to study that time period. We will be including just a couple of projects that I think tie in really well and that my kids would enjoy. I don't really have a whole lot to say negative. We enjoy this format very much. We really enjoyed middle times. So if we were using this as our main history curriculum, I think we would really enjoy it. One downside, I think, to using History Quest for your main American history study is that it's fairly shallow when it comes to American history. And that's probably due to a couple of reasons. It's geared toward upper elementary, so they're not watering down sensitive topics, but they are trying to cover as many of them as possible. So I think it's necessary to kind of shorten some of that. Again, they're trying to cover all of American history in 1 year, which is really difficult to do. That's why a lot of other companies are spreading that out over 2 or even 3 years. But there are homeschool families out there that are not interested in spending 2 or 3 years on American history. So if you're wanting to cover American history in just 1 year, I think this is a really good option. My personal opinion was that I felt, being Americans and with all the things going on in the world right now and in America right now, I thought it was important to cover American history in a whole lot of detail. There's just so much that is still relevant today and still going on today that I wanted to really cover that stuff, cover all of those topics in a lot of detail and a little bit deeper. But that being said, this is still a wonderful curriculum for just 1 year of study with kids who are a little bit on the younger side and not, ready for middle school, high school level American history study. It would also serve as a really nice backbone if you like doing deep dives or following rabbit holes. You could easily stretch this out over a couple of years, and when you get to topics that really interest you, spend the time to dig into those extra resources, dig into those extra books and web links that Pandia Press includes on there's like one link to their website where they have updated links that go with each chapter. You could easily stretch out each unit over, 2 or 3 weeks and really get into it a little more deeply. If you are at all interested in anything Pandia Press has to offer, History Quest or History Odyssey, which is their older levels of history, I'm a big fan of their Real Science Odyssey courses, as you probably know, then they have generous samples available on their website. You can get easily like 3 or 4 weeks worth of each curriculum to try, where you can really use it and get a feel for how it works before purchasing. If you are interested, I will include, of course, links down in the description to History Quest and their other offerings, as well as the sample section called Try Before You Buy. However, if you are going to purchase, now is a great time because it's on sale. Everything on Pandia Press is 25% off until March 31st, so take advantage of that. I hope you enjoyed getting an inside look at History Quest United States. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time. Bye!